Daniel Carter, dressed in a charcoal jacket with sleeves rolled to the elbow, sits alone at a riverside bistro on a quiet Saturday afternoon. A woman walks in carrying the weight of quiet desperation. She studies the menu like an arithmetic problem, hides her empty wallet beneath the table, then stands up and walks back out without ordering anything at all. Daniel sees something painfully familiar in that retreat, the way pride still straightens a spine that hunger has hollowed. He pushes back his chair. The decision is already made. One open door will quietly reshape every life it touches. This story does not hurry. If you stay with it to the end, leave a single word below for what you take with you. The bistro door swung shut behind Daniel. The bell above it gave a thin, dry chime. He caught up with her at the corner where the awning ended, where the river light spilled bright across the sidewalk. "Excuse me," he said. "Could you wait 1 second?" She turned. Her eyes were sharp, ready. Not the look of someone proud. The look of someone who had been hurt by people who said they only wanted to help. "I noticed you didn't get to order," Daniel said, keeping his voice low. "I ordered too much. There's a free chair at my table, if you'd like it." She shook her head before he finished the sentence. "No, thank you, we're fine. I'm not trying to." "I already told you we're fine." Her voice hardened. "I don't take charity." He didn't push. He nodded once. "I understand. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." She didn't answer. She turned, set her shoulders, and walked away down the sidewalk toward the bus stop on Fremont. The light caught her once at the crosswalk, and then she was gone behind a delivery truck. Daniel stood there longer than he meant to. The afternoon felt too bright. He went back inside, sat down in front of his half-eaten plate, and did not touch it again. He had money. He could have ordered 10 more plates without thinking twice. He could have run after her and put cash in her hand. He had done that kind of thing before, in his first years out of the kitchen, and learned the hard way how it landed. For someone who had been pushed around by life, kindness offered the wrong way could feel like another trap. Sometimes the only thing left to a person was the right to walk away with their pride intact. The server came by. "Everything okay, sir?" "Yeah." "Could I get the check, please? And box this up." He paid in cash, left a tip that was generous but not strange, and walked back to his car. His phone buzzed in the cup holder on the way home. A text from his mother-in-law, Helen, with a photo of his son grinning over a plate of pancakes. He ate 3. He says, "Hi." Daniel smiled without thinking. Ethan was with Helen and Roy for the weekend, 1 Saturday a month, the schedule they had kept since Caroline died. The house would be quiet when he got back. He used to dread the quiet. Now he just made room for it. He went to his office instead. He let himself in through the side door, turned on a single lamp, and sat down behind the desk. From the top drawer, he took out a photograph he kept face down beneath a stack of business cards. He looked at it for a moment and put it back. He sat for a long time. He did not know the woman's name. He did not know her story. He knew one thing for certain. She did not need a stranger buying her a meal so she could feel small. She needed a chance that felt safe, clear, respectful. And if he was going to be the one to offer that chance, he was going to have to learn how to be patient. He drove home through the long October light. For the next 2 weeks, Daniel made a habit he did not announce to himself. Riverside Park was a few blocks from his office. On days his calendar allowed, he packed a paperback and walked the long way, past the old maple by the playground, to a bench near the western path. He told himself he was reading. On the 3rd visit he saw her. She was sitting on a bench at the far end of the path with her body angled outward, the way a person sits when they are watching a child more than they are resting. And there, 10 yards in front of her on the swings, was a little girl, 6 or so. Messy blonde curls, small legs pumping for height. Something dropped through Daniel's chest. He had not known. The woman at the bistro had a daughter. The wallet on the table had been pretending to be enough for 2. He stayed where he was. He did not stand up. He did not wave. He opened his book to a page he had read 3 times that week and let the woman decide whether he was a threat. She noticed him within minutes. He saw her back straighten. One hand moved to the strap of the bag at her hip, ready to leave. He turned a page he was not reading and kept his eyes on the words. She did not leave. He came back when he could. Some days he only walked through. Other days he sat. He never approached. He never spoke. Slowly, on its own, the space between them began to shrink. 2 benches apart became one. One became the same long bench, she at one end, he at the other, with the child's bucket of dry leaves between them on the path. On the 8th or 9th visit, a young man in a hooded sweatshirt stopped in front of Daniel's bench. He shifted his weight, looked down, then made himself look up. "Mr. Carter? I don't know if you remember me. Marcus Reyes, Holiday Park Shelter. 2 winters ago." Daniel closed the book on his finger. "Marcus, sure, how are you? I started at PCC in September. Business admin. They told me at the office it was an anonymous donor, but I asked around enough. I wanted to say thank you. In person." He gave a short, embarrassed laugh. "I've been hoping I'd run into you. My mom works near the river." Daniel stood up and shook his hand. "Congratulations, that's all on you. Show up. Keep showing up." "You did, sir, when nobody else was." Daniel did not answer. Marcus glanced at the playground, gave him one more small nod, and walked on. When Daniel sat down again, he could feel the woman's attention on the side of his face. She had heard. She did not pretend she hadn't. She was looking at the worn cover of his paperback the way someone looks at a coat that turns out to be older than they thought. Whatever she had decided about him in the bistro was being rewritten in real time. A few minutes later, the little girl came running over. She stopped 2 feet from Daniel and tilted her head up at him with the kind of honesty only children still have. Mama, that's the man from the restaurant, right?" "Emma," the woman said immediately, her voice firm but not cruel. "Don't bother people." Daniel closed the book. He smiled at the girl. "Hi, Emma. My name is Daniel." Emma considered him. "Do you still eat chicken tenders?" He laughed before he could stop himself. "I do. I didn't bring any today, though." Emma grinned. The woman reached out and pulled her daughter gently against her side. Not roughly, protectively. Then she looked at Daniel for the first time without a wall. "I appreciate that you haven't pushed," she said. Her voice was quiet but very clear. "I need to be honest with you. I don't accept help from strangers." Daniel nodded. "I understand." "No." She held his eyes. "You don't." Then, after a long moment, she added, "But maybe you might. My name is Sarah Mitchell. This is my daughter, Emma. Could we meet somewhere tomorrow?" Without her, they met at 10 in the morning. Sarah suggested the park again, the same bench. Emma was at school. The October air was cooler now. The leaves underfoot had gone from yellow to brown. Sarah sat at one end of the bench. Daniel sat at the other, leaving a careful arm's length of wood between them. She had brought a thermos. She did not open it. She did not waste time. 2 years ago, Emma's father left, she said. She kept her eyes on the river. I had been staying home with her, so I had no recent work, no references. I applied everywhere. No one wanted to hire a single mother with a gap in her resume. Daniel said nothing. He left room for her to tell it the way she needed to. "Then I met a man named Richard Hale," Sarah said. "He owned a few small businesses. He gave me a job with good pay and flexible hours. I thought I had finally found somebody decent." Her voice flattened. At first it was fine. Then he started asking for more. Stay late, dinner with clients, wear the dress he picked, smile more. Every time I hesitated, he reminded me that I owed him, that no one else was willing to hire me, that I should be grateful. She stopped. She took a breath. She did not cry. When I finally said no, he told me I didn't understand how the world worked. He said if I wanted to keep the job, I had to show my gratitude the right way. Daniel's hand stayed open on his knees. "I quit that same day," Sarah said. "But Richard had connections. He called the places I applied to after that, told them I couldn't be trusted, that I stole money, that I used men to get ahead. I lost the apartment. We stayed in a shelter for 4 months. Eventually I found work doing laundry for cash. The pay is low and there is no security, but at least I don't owe anybody." She looked at him then. Her eyes were red at the edges. Her voice stayed level. "So when you offered to help at the bistro, when you kept showing up here, I kept waiting for you to name the real price, because I have learned that nothing is free. Sooner or later, there's always a bill." The word sat between them on the bench. Daniel did not rush to tell her he was different. He knew men like Richard said the same thing. "Thank you for telling me," he said. She looked surprised. He went on, "I'm not going to say I'm not like him. Words are cheap. So I'll tell you something instead." He told her, briefly, about the years he had slept in his car in Seattle. about washing dishes 12 hours a day for a man named George Miller, who paid him fairly and never made him beg. About the morning, George had put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Just open the door, let them walk through on their own." He told her George had died 3 years earlier, the same year his wife, Caroline, had died of cancer. He told her he was raising a 7-year-old son named Ethan more or less alone, with the help of Caroline's parents on weekends. "I am telling you that," Daniel said, "so you know I am not a man who has never been afraid of anything. I have been afraid of almost everything. I just had people who didn't use it against me." Sarah did not answer. She watched a heron lift off the river and bank away toward the bridge. Daniel took a business card from his jacket pocket. He set it down on the bench between them. He did not hand it to her. "I need an administrative assistant, scheduling, emails, client materials, organizing files. This isn't charity. It's a real job. There will be an interview, a contract, a probation period, a clear salary." She looked at the card. She did not pick it up. "I'm not asking you to answer right now," he said. "If you want to interview, call the office. If you don't, that's fine too. I'll still come to the park when I can. Emma can still play on the swings." He stood up. "It was good to meet you properly, Sarah." She did not smile, but the sharpness in her eyes had softened just a little. 3 days passed with no call. On the 4th day, the office phone rang. Daniel was on a video conference with a client in Denver. Megan Brooks, the chief operating officer, picked up the line. She knocked on his door a minute later. "Sarah Mitchell on line 2. Says she's calling about the assistant position." Daniel held up one finger to the camera. "Take a message?" Megan tilted her head. She sounded like she might not call back. He muted the call. Put her through. The voice that came on was careful and formal. "Mr. Carter, this is Sarah Mitchell. If the position is still open, I would like to interview." "It's still open. Would Monday at 9 work for you?" "Yes." He hesitated, then added, "Our COO Megan will be on the panel with me. Standard interview format. Nothing unusual." A breath on the other end. "Thank you. Monday at 9. On Monday, she arrived 15 minutes early. She wore a navy dress that had been ironed with care. She carried a resume printed on slightly yellowed paper, the kind of cream stock that had been bought a year ago for a stack of applications that never went anywhere. Daniel noticed it without comment. He had used the same paper once. Megan led the interview. She asked about Sarah's organizational style. Sarah answered clearly. She had run a household budget on $120 a week for 2 years. She had managed shelter intake paperwork as a volunteer. She knew how to track 100 small things at once. Daniel asked about pressure. Sarah said she was used to handling multiple things going wrong at the same time. Megan asked about the gap in her work history. Sarah did not avoid it. "I was caring for my daughter. After that, I faced some difficult circumstances. I would rather talk about what I can do now." Megan nodded once and made a small note on her pad. Daniel asked her to walk through how she would handle scheduling for 3 clients in 3 time zones. She walked through it. She caught one assumption he had built into the question on purpose. She told him, politely, that the assumption was wrong. At the end, Daniel slid a contract across the desk. 3 months probation, same as anyone else. Market rate salary. Benefits when you go permanent. He pushed a pen toward her, then pulled it back. "Take it home. Read it carefully. Have someone look it over. You don't have to sign today." Sarah picked up the papers. Her fingers were steady. She read for almost 10 minutes while Daniel and Megan worked through other things on quiet laptops. At one point, Megan got up and brought her a glass of water without making a thing of it. When Sarah looked up, she said, "It's fair. It should be. You're not worried I won't do the work well?" "I expect good work," Daniel said. "If you don't meet the standard, I'll tell you. If you do, you'll be paid accordingly. This is a job, not a favor." For the first time since he had met her, Sarah smiled. It was small, but it was real. "Then I accept." Megan offered her hand. "Welcome to Carter Strategic Consulting." Sarah shook it. Then she turned and offered her hand to Daniel as well. He took it. Her grip was firmer than he expected. That night, after Ethan had gone to bed, Daniel sat at the kitchen counter and looked at the orientation packet he had pulled together. New hire forms, tax paperwork, a printed copy of the employee handbook with the harassment policy tabbed in yellow. He thought for a moment, then added a printed sheet at the front that simply said, "Direct Supervisor, Daniel Carter. Skip level, Megan Brooks. Escalation contact for any concern about anyone in this office, including the owner, Megan Brooks. He underlined Megan's phone number twice. Sarah started the following week. Daniel treated her exactly like any other employee. He did not ask about her personal life unless it was necessary for work. He did not give her special treatment, did not call her after hours, did not look for reasons to pass her desk. The first few days, she was extremely tense. Every time he called her into his office, she walked in like she was bracing for bad news. Every time he gave feedback, she apologized immediately, even for small things. The third time she did it, he stopped her. "It's fine. Just fix it. You don't owe me an apology for getting something wrong." She looked at him like she was not used to mistakes being treated as something that could simply be corrected, but she began to settle. In her second week, she suggested a better way to schedule meetings so clients in different time zones would not overlap on Daniel's calendar. In her third week, she caught a clause in a contract before he signed it. In her fourth week, she went through their software subscriptions and found 4 they no longer used, saving the firm almost $12,000 a year without being asked. He realized he had almost passed on a genuinely capable person because her past looked messy on paper. On a Thursday afternoon in the middle of November, Daniel left the office at 3. He told Megan he would be on his phone. Sarah was at the printer when the receptionist, Janet, leaned on the counter with a soft, fond expression. "He never misses one, you know." Sarah looked up. "I'm sorry, Ethan." His son. School things, reading days, science fairs. Today it's a poetry recital. Daniel hasn't missed a single one since Caroline passed. Janet picked up a stack of envelopes. 3 years this December. Sarah did not say anything. She finished collecting her pages, walked back to her desk, and sat for a moment with her hand flat on the warm paper. Then she looked across the office at Daniel's open door. From where she was sitting, she could just see the corner of the photograph he kept on his credenza. A boy on someone's shoulders. A woman laughing at the camera with sun in her hair. When Daniel got back to the office at 6:30, only Sarah was still there. She was finishing a client file. He stopped in her doorway. "You can leave that for tomorrow." She looked up. "I know. I'd rather finish it while it's fresh." "How was the day?" "Fine." Megan ran the 11 o'clock with the Tualatin client. "It went well," he nodded. "Don't overwork yourself." She studied him for a moment. Her face had a stillness to it that he had not seen before, the kind that meant she was about to ask something she had been holding for a while. "You really will tell me," she said, "if I'm not doing the job well." "Of course, and you won't use the fact that you gave me this job to make me accept anything I don't want." He did not flinch. He understood why she had to ask. "No," he said. "This is work. The contract protects both of us. If anything in this office makes you uncomfortable, the escalation contact is Megan, and Megan does not work for me when it comes to that kind of complaint. She works for the board. No one owns anyone here." Sarah looked down at her desk. "It sounds simple when you say it. It should be simple. Not everyone makes it simple." She nodded slowly. "True." He left her at her desk and walked back to his office. From his window, he watched the lights along the river come on, one by one. The firm published a case study on a Monday morning in early March. A 2-page write-up on the rural healthcare client they had carried through a complicated regulatory transition. At the bottom, in a small paragraph that had become standard practice, Daniel had named the team: Megan Brooks, 2 senior consultants, and Sarah Mitchell, listed by role, who had coordinated client communications throughout the engagement. Richard Hale walked into the lobby of Carter Strategic Consulting at 4 in the afternoon on Tuesday. He was dressed well. He smiled at the receptionist. He said he had read the case study and wondered if Mr. Carter had a few minutes to discuss a potential project. Janet asked him to wait. She walked, not hurried but not slow, to Megan's office instead of to Daniel's. Megan stood up the moment Janet said the name. "Daniel," she said into his doorway a minute later. "Conference room. Now. Bring nothing. Sarah is at the satellite office in Beaverton this afternoon. She's not going to walk in on this." In the conference room, Richard sat down without being asked. He talked for a while about partnership opportunities, about how impressed he was with the firm's growth. Then, almost in the middle of a sentence, he said, "Of course, I noticed you have Sarah Mitchell on your roster now. I should mention, as a courtesy, She and I have a complicated history. There are things about her work ethic that any decent business owner would want to know." Daniel did not answer. Megan opened the folder she had brought in with her. "Mr. Hale," Megan said, "I want to be precise. This is Miss Mitchell's performance review from her 90-day evaluation. Error rate down 40% against the role baseline. Client satisfaction scores in the top quartile. 2 unsolicited written commendations from clients who specifically named her contributions. This is the firm's response policy on defamation of current employees. Signed by outside counsel. This is the cease and desist letter we are prepared to send to your business addresses within 24 hours if any of our clients receive a single phone call about Miss Mitchell's character." She turned the page. "And this," she said, "is the reason I have it ready." The next sheet in the folder was a printout of an email, dated almost 4 years ago, from Megan's personal account to a woman named Hannah Doyle. The body of the email read, "Hannah, please save everything. Dates, times, his exact words. If you ever decide to come forward, I will go with you." Megan looked at Richard without expression. "Hannah was my college roommate. She came to me before she left your company. I have been keeping a file ever since. I did not need Sarah Mitchell's name to know who you are. Sarah's name just told me where you would show up next." Richard's face did something it had clearly not planned on doing. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "I came in good faith." "Then you will leave in good faith," Daniel said, the first words he had spoken, "and you will not contact this firm, or any client of this firm, or Miss Mitchell, in any form, ever again. If you do, the letter goes out by close of business that day. We have your business addresses on file." Richard left within 3 minutes. Janet held the door for him without expression. That evening, Megan sent Sarah a formal HR memo. It described the incident in clean, neutral language. It cited the firm's policy. It listed the protections in place. It said the matter was closed and that no action was required from her. Sarah came into Daniel's office the next morning, the memo in her hand, and said only, "Thank you for not making me ask." "You shouldn't have to," Daniel said. Sarah had sold her car back in August to pay down the last of her shelter-era debt. She had not told anyone. She rode the 72 bus to work and walked 11 blocks from the stop to the office. In November, the rain came steady through her commute. In January and February, the wind off the river found every gap in her coat. By March, she was running on too little sleep and a thermos of bad coffee. She kept skipping breakfast because Emma needed real lunches in her backpack. She kept staying late because there was a contract worth $400,000 depending on a deliverable due Thursday morning. On Wednesday afternoon, she dropped Emma at the home of a classmate named Lily Park, whose mother she had come to trust. The sleepover had been planned 2 weeks in advance. Emma packed her own bag and was proud of it. Sarah went home, put on dry socks, made tea she did not drink, and sat down at the kitchen table to finish the client brief. She did not remember the floor coming up to meet her. She remembered the cold of the tile against her cheek, the rasp of her own breath, and the long crawl to her purse on the chair. She called 911. Then, while she could still speak, she called Daniel. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry to call so late. They're taking me to County General. The brief, Stop." His voice was already calm. "Work is not more important." "Which hospital?" "County General. I'll be there." "You don't have to. I'm coming. Don't argue." "Is Emma safe?" "Sleepover. Lily Park." "Good." On the drive, the memories he usually kept buried came back sharply. He had sat in an emergency room at 23, with no insurance, and his sister's small hand in his. He had stared at a bill with 3 more zeros than he had ever held at once. Poor people did not just fear getting sick. They feared what came after. When he arrived, Sarah was on a gurney in a curtained bay. "Pneumonia," the resident said. "Severe dehydration." They were admitting her for at least 48 hours of intravenous antibiotics and fluids. She would be fine. She had been close to not being fine. Daniel sat down on the small plastic chair beside her bed. Sarah looked at him with 3 things in her face at once: relief, shame, and the old careful watchfulness. "You actually came. I told you I would. I can't pay for this. I don't have good insurance. I'll cover the hospital bill." "No, I can't let you. Listen to me." He did not lean closer. He did not take her hand. "I will pay the hospital directly. You will not owe me anything. Not loyalty. Not extra hours. Not affection, not gratitude, nothing. Her eyes filled. You don't understand. I don't know how to accept this without feeling tied down. This time, don't accept it for yourself. Accept it because you have to walk into the office on Monday and be told your job is still yours. Accept it because Mrs. Park is going to ask questions you don't need to answer, and you don't need that fight right now. She closed her eyes. A tear went sideways into her hair. Okay, he stayed. He moved to the chair in the hallway when nurses came in. He drank bad coffee. He texted Megan at 1 in the morning. Handle Thursday. Do not call Sarah. He texted Helen to keep Ethan an extra day. He did not sleep. Around 4 in the morning, Sarah came out into the hallway in a hospital gown and a borrowed cardigan. She sat down beside him without speaking. She did not sit as far away as she used to. Why did you stay? She asked. He looked at the closed door of her room. Because when someone is afraid, he said, presence matters more than money. She rested her head briefly against the wall and closed her eyes. Sarah came home from the hospital on Friday afternoon. Daniel drove her, carried her bag to the door, and waited until she had her key in the lock. Take next week, he said. Megan and I have it. Take the week. She took the week. Lily's mother brought Emma home Saturday morning. Emma had been told that Mama had been tired, and the doctor had said she needed to drink more water. She accepted this completely, and then climbed into her mother's lap on the couch and fell asleep against her shoulder. On Monday, Sarah called the school office about another mother she had seen at the drop-off line for 2 months, a woman who never spoke, whose daughter wore shoes with the toes curling at the front. By Wednesday, she had a name and a plan that did not involve money she did not have. She came back to work the following Monday and went straight to Daniel's office. I want to do something for the woman at Emma's school. Tell me, she told him. Start small and clear, Daniel said. Not I will save your life. Just I have an extra pair of shoes my daughter outgrew. Would yours fit them? If you want to be more direct, tell her you were once in a difficult place and you would like to help with one small thing. No strings. Sarah wrote it down on the back of a meeting agenda. What if she says no? Then you respect it. Helping someone doesn't mean forcing them to accept. Sarah looked at him. It's harder than I thought. Helping while still protecting the other person's dignity is delicate work. Yes, I'm learning that from you. You're learning it from your own life, Daniel said. I'm just trying not to damage it. She did not leave right away. She stood in his doorway and turned the small silver band on her right hand, the one her grandmother had left her, the only thing she had not pawned during the shelter year. Emma wants to invite you to dinner, she said. And Ethan. She said she wants to thank you for staying at the hospital. She also wants to show off the new apartment. He looked up. The new apartment? Sarah smiled. This time it reached her eyes. I signed a lease. 2 bedrooms. It is not big, but it is clean and safe and 10 minutes from the school. For the first time in 2 years, I have keys to a place no one can suddenly take away from me. I am really happy for you. So oui. That Saturday evening, Daniel and Ethan went over. Daniel brought a small potted basil plant and a loaf of garlic bread because Sarah had said she was making spaghetti. Ethan brought a wooden box of his best origami paper because Sarah had told Daniel that Emma had asked. Emma opened the door and stared at Ethan for one evaluating second. You're tall, she said. You're loud, Ethan said. This was apparently a successful introduction. They went to the living room rug and did not come back until dinner. Sarah and Daniel ate spaghetti at a small table by the window. Afterward, they did the dishes side by side, while the children laughed in the next room over a half-folded paper crane that kept refusing to be a crane. Sarah rinsed a plate. Have you ever been afraid you're getting too close? Daniel did not pretend not to understand. Yes. Why? Because I'm your boss. Because I have more money than you. Because you were hurt by a man who used his position. I'm afraid that if I say how I feel too soon, it will make you feel pressured. She turned the faucet off. The water sound stopped, and the kitchen felt suddenly very quiet. How do you feel? He set down the plate he was drying. I care about you more than a friend. I won't do anything with those feelings unless you're ready. Your job has nothing to do with this. Emma's safety has nothing to do with this. The hospital bill has nothing to do with this. You don't owe me a nice answer. She was quiet for a long time. Then she She reached over and rested her hand on top of his on the edge of the counter. She left it there for a few seconds. She did not say anything. She did not need to. They went slow. They had agreed to go slow, and they kept their word to each other in a way neither of them had been kept to before. At the office, Megan formally took over direct supervision of Sarah. Sarah's role expanded. Her salary moved up 2 band steps at the next review. Daniel evaluated her work only through Megan, and only on documents Megan had signed off on first. He wanted Sarah to know that if anything between them ever ended, the job she had built would still be hers. Outside of work, things moved at the pace of small dinners and long walks. They had coffee on Sunday mornings while the children watched cartoons. They took Ethan and Emma to the Children's Museum, and to the river overlook, and to a pumpkin patch on a Saturday when the rain held off. They volunteered together 1 weekend a month at the community center, where Daniel had been quietly cutting checks for almost a decade. In May, 6 months after Sarah had walked into Carter Strategic Consulting for her interview, she came into Daniel's office at the end of a Friday and put an envelope on his desk. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a check for $500, made out to the community center. He stared at it longer than he meant to. "Sarah, it is not to pay you back for the hospital," she said. "You made it clear that wasn't a debt. It is to pass forward. I want Emma to grow up understanding that when you have a little extra, you share it, not because somebody owes you, because there were times when you needed somebody to share with you." To Daniel, $500 was not a large amount anymore. To Sarah, it represented weeks of careful saving, money that could have gone toward new clothes for Emma, better groceries, more security. He did not stand up. He did not move toward her. He just looked at her across the desk. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He nodded. "Thank you." She left his office and went back to her desk and did not make a thing of it. That summer, Emma asked the question. It was a Sunday afternoon at the river. Daniel was holding a paper bag of stale bread for the ducks. Ethan was kneeling at the water's edge. Sarah was sitting on the bench with her shoes off. Emma walked over and tugged at Daniel's sleeve. "Are you Mama's boyfriend?" Sarah, on the bench, choked on her water. Daniel crouched down so he was eye to eye with the girl. "I'm a very close friend of your mom's, and I respect her very much. If one day your mom wants to call me something different, that will be her decision." Emma considered this with great seriousness. "So you'll still come for spaghetti? If your mom invites me." "Okay then." She ran back to the ducks. Ethan, 10 yards down, looked up and waved her over, and they bent their heads together over a snail they had decided was endangered. Daniel sat down next to Sarah on the bench. He did not touch her. They watched the children. "That was a kind answer," Sarah said. "It was an honest one." "I know. Those are not always the same." She slid her hand across the wood of the bench and laid it over his. In the fall, on a Saturday she had not planned for, Daniel asked her if she would be willing to think about marrying him. He asked her at her own kitchen table, while Emma was at a birthday party and Ethan was at his grandparents'. He asked her without a ring. He told her that if she said yes, the ring should be something they chose together, and if she said no, or not yet, or not ever, he would still bring spaghetti next Saturday. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Yes, not soon, but yes." "Okay," Daniel said. "We'll go in the order you want." 1 year after the afternoon at Riverside Bistro, the community center hosted a community meal. No advertising, no reporters, long folding tables, hot soup, bread, salad, a few simple desserts. Sarah worked the serving line, her hair tied back, gloves on, smiling at every person who came through. Emma was in charge of napkins and took the job very seriously, as if it were the most important task in the world. Ethan stood at the breadbasket and pretended to be the manager of bread. Daniel watched Sarah from the kitchen doorway. She was no longer the woman who had quietly walked out of a restaurant because she could not afford to stay. She was no longer the woman who looked at every act of kindness like a trap waiting to spring. She was still careful. She still remembered. She had simply stopped letting Richard Hale write the rest of her life. At the end of the evening, when most people had gone, Sarah walked over to where Daniel was standing. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking George was right." "About what?" "That the best way to repay kindness is to live decently enough that it does not stop with you." Sarah looked at the long tables being cleared. "I used to think that needing help meant I was weak. I used to think that too. And now?" He looked at her. "Now I think people weren't made to survive alone." She took his hand. "I'm glad you saw us that day." He squeezed her fingers. "I'm glad you came back to the park." 4 months later, They were married in a small ceremony at the community center. There were perhaps 30 people in folding chairs. Megan stood up with Daniel. Helen and Roy sat in the front row holding Ethan's hand. Mrs. Park sat behind them with Emma. In his vows, Daniel said, "I do not promise to fix every problem you have. I promise I will not use love to take away your ability to stand on your own. I promise to open doors when I can, and to respect it when you want to open them yourself." Sarah cried. She said, "I do not promise I'll never be afraid again. I promise I won't let the fear from my past make decisions for my heart forever." Emma stood beside them holding a small bouquet, crying, even though she probably did not understand everything. After the ceremony, at the head table, they left one chair empty. On the chair was a framed photograph, an older man in a white chef's coat, his hand on the shoulder of a thin young man. Without him, Daniel might not have recognized the look on Sarah's face that afternoon at the bistro. He might have thought helping only meant giving money. He might not have had the patience to prove that real kindness does not come with strings attached. The story closes on a spring evening. Daniel is standing in the kitchen of the small house they have rented together, washing dishes after dinner. Sarah is wiping down the table. Emma is at the dining table doing homework. Ethan is reading on the couch with one foot in Emma's lap because she has decided this is allowed. Outside the window, sunflowers in the backyard sway gently in the breeze. Sarah walks over and leans against the counter beside him. "Do you know," she says, "there was a new woman at the center today. She didn't want to take a meal voucher. She kept saying she didn't need it. What did you do?" Sarah smiles. "I put the voucher on the table and told her she could take it if she wanted, and it was also fine if she didn't. Then, I walked away." "Did she take it?" "She did. After about 10 minutes. Daniel smiles. "You opened the door." Sarah rests her head against his shoulder, so she could walk through on her own. He did not save her. He only saw her when she was quietly trying to leave. She was the one who chose to come back. She chose to interview. She chose to work. She chose to trust, little by little, and she chose to turn her pain into light for other people. That is the most beautiful part. Not a rich man saving a poor woman. Two people who were once shown an open door, now keeping that same door open for whoever comes next.